Bali, another thing that was huge that happened over it was last week, wasn't it? Was the Splatoon Global Testfire for Splatoon 2. And I know you played a lot of that as well.
Yeah, we both played. We both downloaded this. Same as last time with the test fires. We can't obviously play together, but they had a couple of maps. I think they had 4 or 5 slots over the weekend, and we both did 2 each, I believe.
Yes.
And it was great. It was more Splatoon. In my view, it looked a little bit shinier. It felt slick. I enjoyed the new weapons they had on offer. I think the 2 maps they gave you were very bland. I don't know whether that was on purpose, just to make sure that you focused more on the mechanics and the new weapons and not think about your whereabouts. But I hope that they can implement some more interesting maps for the real game. I think that this was just like a window into the mechanics, and ultimately we're really not any more knowledgeable about the game modes that are going to be in this game, whether that's single player, the online game modes, and the other maps. And that's ultimately what I'm most intrigued about going forward, because this test fire, it sold me on the mechanics. I'm happy to get this game day one, but I'm intrigued to see what else they can do.
I mean, it's weird to say sold you on the mechanics because, quite frankly, it's the exact same game as Splatoon 1 when it comes to that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah,
like, there are differences. You have the new special moves, which I thought were pretty cool. They felt more special, if you know what I mean, than the original game did. Where though you had like stuff which could be very effective. I mean, the stuff in the first game was powerful, but like this feels more like, I don't know, maybe comparing to something like Overwatch, like a hero power or something that feels maybe a bit more tailored. Yeah, a bit more like tailored and unique, like the whole jetpack thing going up in the air and moving around. I think the roller special with the kind of slam to the ground is different, but more effective maybe than the giant squid just flopping everywhere, which, you know, I like that, but it definitely had its drawbacks. But generally, like, aside from the splat dualies, everything felt the exact same. And the more I look at this game, the more we kind of see of it, the less I'm convinced that this started out life as a true sequel. The more I think this was just going to be a deluxe edition. And the reason they put a 2 on it was because we need things that aren't just Wii U ports, and Japan is going to, eat this up, so we might as well put a sequel number on it. Like, not only because sequels sell better, but also because in Japan, Splatoon was a moneymaker like crazy, especially on Wii U, which had sold so little. And the thing that convinces me of that is you look at the matchmaking and you think about all the problems that the original Splatoon had with its lobby system and lack of loadouts and everything that operated with the online infrastructure, and it's the exact same. And I'm like, yeah, this just tells me that they haven't thought about rewriting any of that stuff. Like, that is the most bog standard. Like, you should be looking, when you're an online game, to improve the online experience. And everyone's like, oh, they can change it for the launch and everything. I'm like, no, this game is almost done. This is how they've tested it, and this is what it looks like. I am very doubtful that they're going to change this before launch, and I think that is a crying shame. And a lot of people are like, well, clearly this is a sequel because, you have these new things, you have these new maps. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, so if we're talking about shooters, generally, the market for them, it's a very iterative genre, right? Like, you don't see these wild sweeping changes from game to game. And Nintendo has their fair share of genres or franchises where they don't have these wild sweeping changes. Things like Animal Crossing, things like Pokemon. And I think, for me, I expected them to be bolder with a sequel to Splatoon, to go further with it, to try stuff that was completely different, and the blueprint for me is still here. It's a great blueprint. Splatoon's a fucking amazing game, but ultimately, as Wii U owners, as people who have already played the first game for a lot of hours, I want to play this, but I feel like I'm being duped into playing something that isn't really a sequel, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's not dressed itself up well as a sequel so far, and I think that's where you just will mechanically, you're right. The online is just the same, isn't it? We're just gonna have to wait for the game modes and the single player mode and other new potential weapons. Like, will it really make the step up, or is this just a cash grab? And I think ultimately it's going to be a bit of both, to be honest. I think that there will be some cool game modes, and certainly after the update last time with Splatoon, where you could have like friend only, not friend only, what am I trying to say? Like squad matches and squad battles and things like those worked well, and I'm intrigued to see how those might evolve with this game. But ultimately, I don't think the online before was particularly bad. Like, I think it matched up well. It worked well. I don't think. Can you argue it didn't need massively updated?
I think it does need massively updated. I think the fact that you go into matchmaking and you can't change your weapon loadout on the fly
those
is
aspects.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
That stuff is absurd.
That is
quite
weird.
frankly, like, you look at, and I know people like to compare Nintendo to other things, but like, when you are doing an online game, people have figured this shit out, and it's tedious, because the way you stay in an online game is you have no friction, right? You want to be able to get in there and get out. And Splatoon, with its back out to the menu, change your thing, go back in, wait for it to connect, find a new lobby. And in other shooters, you're just in a lobby and you can do all that on the fly. You know, like it keeps retention. And that's something that I think Nintendo are sometimes quite bad about, is like losing you over bad UI and menu design and things like that. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think maybe one thing that I was interested, I don't know how you feel about it, is the lack of the gamepad and not having that bottom screen constantly and not being able to kind of shoot quickly to your teammates and not seeing the lay of the land. A lot of people were getting annoyed by the fact they changed the placement of the jump button. Also, most people playing the Splatoon 2 Global Testfire have also been playing hundreds of hours of Zelda. So, and if they haven't changed the default controls, the jump button in that game is different. I was fine, frankly, because having played 100 hours of Zelda, going into Splatoon, the button was where I used to jump in Zelda because I switched them about. So it worked out fine for me. But I don't know if that was a problem for you, Bally, or if you feel that the loss of the gamepad is significant in any way to the second game.
I don't know how significant it is. Certainly in a mode like... I can't remember the name of the mode. What's the name of the mode where you...
Tower control?
Not tower control. The main mode.
Splat zones?
Not splat zones. The mode we played.
Turf war?
Turf war, exactly. I think a lay of the land is very important for that mode, simply because it's about who covers most of the map in their own coloured ink. So how do you know if you're winning or not? You look at the map and see who's covered the map in the most colour of their ink. And having to press an extra button to see that is a little frustrating. I thought the teleportation... fast travel sort of thing, squid jump thing, was a little more cumbersome than the game. Well, it's always going to be more cumbersome than the gamepad, and that's a shame. But it is as good as they could make it. They were always going to put Splatoon onto the Switch, and they were always going to lose the gamepad in this fashion. So it's expected. I don't know how they can work around it, but it obviously is a shame because Splatoon was designed with the gamepad in mind, and now there's no gamepad, so how do they evolve from that? And it's not ideal.
Yeah, I personally don't think it's, a game breaker or anything.
No, not at all.
It's annoying, but it's not. It doesn't really significantly change the way that you play that game. The one thing that did annoy me was when you open it, you have to press X and then X again to close it. Why can't you just press B to close it? It's just one of these things that really annoys me, is in my gamer brain, when I want to back out of something, I always press B, and it just doesn't do that. So I'm like, God damn it. It's one of those UI things that really just gets on my nerves.
It's the way you're programmed.
Exactly. And I guess, playing Zelda had to reprogram all that shit anyway. But yes, I don't know. Is there anything else we need to say? I think, there weren't really many connection issues I had with Splatoon 2. It worked fine. It was very smooth.
I've heard about others having very bad connection issues. It was fairly smooth for me as well. It worked well.
Yeah, and apparently, people were trying it over data connections on their phones, and that seemed to be okay. So there is a possibility if you, for some reason, have a lot of internet available through your network provider on your phone, you can be on the road in a car playing Splatoon 2. You know, that seems pretty damn cool. So I'm glad that, you know, it's possible. Maybe we should actually quickly talk about playing it on the gamepad, on the Switch. God damn it, Pally. It really is Wii U syndrome, like being stuck. But playing it on the Switch screen itself, for me, that was a worse experience. And I don't know what it is about moving a second analog stick on a handheld, but I felt like I was clawing the controller a bit more when it was off the TV. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, perhaps. When I was in handheld mode, I was using the second analog stick less because I was using the gyro, and I actually thought that taking the I was going to say the gamepad, the tablet out itself.
The Switch. We need to call it the Switch. God damn it.
The Switch tablet. Taking the Switch tablet out itself with the Joy-Cons attached, I was worried wouldn't work well at all with the gyro because you're twisting it around, but actually it kind of worked better than I thought it would. I definitely agree with you. I preferred it when it was on the screen and I just had the Joy-Cons in the Joy-Con grip and I was able to use all my motion control like that. I thought that worked well, but it looks so damn crisp on the Switch tablet, doesn't it? It looks so...
Oh boy.
It looks so great. So, I mean, I will be able to play this on the go, but I'll just try and play it on my screen more often than not.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think, yeah...
And that's coming summer, we know. That's all we know.
Yeah,
summer. So
it is.
Just after E3, just before?
I would say July, maybe, is where I'm guessing it's possible. July's a weird place to release something, though. I don't know. It's this weird conundrum where it's like, where does ARMS go now? Is ARMS a May game? Because Mario Kart's end of April.
Yeah, I reckon ARMS end of May.
Yeah, ARMS probably end of May, which leads us into E3. Maybe end of June for Splatoon, maybe. That could potentially be it. But then you're thinking about what else is covering those gaps. I don't know, if we're talking about it like month at a time sort of thing, that Fire Emblem Warriors game is probably coming around September or something, or October. So they may have enough, big games coming out each month to where it works like that.
I wonder if Nintendo are kicking themselves not to just put the development of that game onto the Switch for Fire Emblem.
You mean the Musou, the Dynasty Warriors game?
No, the one you just said that's coming to 3DS.
I was talking about the Dynasty Warriors game, because that's the one that's coming.
Okay. Right,
yeah.
got you.
But I don't think Nintendo actually do care about that, because they still want to use that 3DS Fire Emblem engine. They've made 4 fucking games in it already.
Yeah,
why not do another?
The whole engine, you can't just move it.
And they're also creating a ground up Fire Emblem for Switch anyway for next year. So I think they're fine. Yeah, so that's Splatoon 2, Global Testfire. I'm sure a lot of you played it as well, but it's good. Look, it's a good game. It's going to be fun. Probably going to be the first time where a lot of us are actually kind of checking the online out for Nintendo Switch, and I wonder how that stuff's going to roll out with this voice chat and this app. If you enjoyed this discussion and would like to hear more, consider subscribing to us on YouTube and following the podcast playlist. You can also find us on iTunes and various other places. Follow us on Twitter at TNL Podcast and email us thisnintendolife@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.